A story blossoming from the deepest darkness of life, William Styron's Sophie's Choice. Dear readers, in our lives, we encounter countless stories. Some are sweet and comforting, while others offer simple solutions to complex life problems. But there are stories that shake our hearts, pierce our souls, and make us look into the deepest, darkest depths of human existence that we might not have even recognized before. Today, I would like to introduce you to William Styron's masterpiece Sophie's Choice, a book precisely of this kind. Some claim reading enhances one's culture and knowledge, but I dare to say that reading a great novel like Sophie's Choice is not merely an accumulation of knowledge. It is an opportunity for profound reflection on the most essential questions we can ask as human beings: suffering and love, survival and guilt, and the burden of moral choice. Through this book, you will expand your understanding of universal human emotions and experiences regardless of your academic background or cultural attainment, broadening your perspective on the world. The darkness and truth unfolding page by page in Sophie's Choice. Sophie's Choice begins in the summer of 1947 in Brooklyn, New York. A young, innocent, aspiring writer from the South, Stingo, stays at a boarding house called Pink House. There, he meets Sophie Zawistowska, a beautiful and mysterious Polish woman, and her passionate, brilliant yet mentally unstable lover, Nathan Landau. Stingo gradually becomes entangled in the strange and intense relationship between these three people. Sophie is enchanting and humorous, yet a deep sorrow and dark shadow lies behind her eyes. Her behavior often veers toward hysteria and madness, and the relationship with Nathan is filled with passionate love and violent conflict. Stingo is both fascinated and terrified by Sophie, and he becomes curious about her past. Sophie begins to gradually reveal her horrifying story to Stingo. This story is a series of unimaginable pain and choices that took place during the human tragedy of the Holocaust. Born into a wealthy Polish family, Sophie's father was a university professor, and her husband was involved in resistance activities. However, when World War II broke out and Nazi Germany occupied Poland, Sophie's life was completely overturned. Her father was falsely accused of anti-Semitic remarks. Although he had actually defended Jews, the Nazis distorted the truth, and he and her husband were arrested and taken to the Auschwitz concentration camp. Here, Sophie's story reaches its tragic peak. Shortly after arriving in Auschwitz, a Nazi SS doctor forced her to imagine an impossible choice: to save only one of her two children while sending the other to death. If Sophie refused to choose, both children would be killed. Faced with this cruel dilemma as a mother, Sophie could only make the agonizing decision to save her daughter and send her son to death. This moment of tragedy became the source of lasting guilt and pain that dominated the rest of her life. Sophie's suffering continued within the camp. She fought for survival, even taking the job of a secretary for the camp's commander, Fass. All these experiences left deep scars and an incurable sense of guilt within her. After the war ended, Sophie barely survived and came to the United States, where she met Nathan. He seemed to comfort her wounds, yet he was himself tormented by unstable mental states and paranoid delusions. The relationship between the three people gradually spiraled toward disaster. Nathan erupted with jealousy and madness over Sophie and Stingo, and eventually, he committed suicide with Sophie in his apartment. Stingo, through this tragic event, came to understand Sophie's life, her suffering, and the deep contradictions of human existence. He became the survivor who witnessed the story and transmitted Sophie's life to the world. The questions Sophie's Choice poses to us: implications. Through this heart-wrenching story, William Styron raises numerous questions and offers deep insight into life and humanity. The very points that every human being must feel empathy and contemplate, regardless of levels of knowledge or education, are precisely what this book encapsulates. 1. The Holocaust: the extremes of human evil and its aftermath. Sophie's Choice goes beyond merely listing historical facts of the Holocaust. It vividly depicts how the Holocaust destroys a human life and tramples on a person's soul. Nazism was not just a political ideology but an extreme evil that completely erased human dignity and shattered an individual's identity. Sophie's suffering is not simply physical but a combination of mental and spiritual agony. This book warns us about the most extreme form of evil that humanity can commit. It clearly shows how hatred, discrimination, and indifference towards specific races or groups can lead to unimaginable tragedy. It makes us understand the importance of remembering and learning from past tragedies and why we must decisively oppose discrimination and hate speech prevalent in today's society. The Holocaust is not just a historical event but a permanent warning that the darkness inherent in human nature can resurface at any time. 2. Survivor's guilt and the weight of impossible choices. Sophie's choice is the core of this novel and the most painful point for readers. The mother's decision to save only one of her 2 children is a brutal form of violence that transcends morality. Having survived, Sophie suffers lifelong guilt and emotional pain. The guilt of "I allowed one to die to save my own life" becomes a poison that erodes her life. This is not just Sophie's story. It is one aspect of the survivor's guilt experienced by many who survived extreme situations. Why did I survive when others didn't? Was my choice the right one? These questions hold great significance even for us who live ordinary lives. We all face big and small decisions in life, and sometimes our choices affect others. This book makes us seriously contemplate the consequences of our choices and their weight. Additionally, it conveys a profound message of empathy that we must not easily judge or criticize others' painful choices. 3. Love and madness, and destructive relationships. The relationship between Sophie and Nathan is another pillar of the book. Nathan seems to understand Sophie's past and love her, but his love is filled with paranoia and madness. He idolizes Sophie one moment and soon after suspects and criticizes her violently. Sophie becomes attached to Nathan's passionate love but suffers from his violent, erratic behavior. Their relationship shows 2 wounded souls relying on each other but ultimately destroying one another. This symbolizes the darkness we may encounter in relationships. It clearly illustrates how control, violence, and mental instability under the guise of love can ruin a person's life. This book awakens our awareness of what a healthy relationship looks like and what warning signs we should be alert to within relationships. 4. The power of stories and the responsibility of witnessing. The aspiring writer Stingo is both a witness to all these tragedies and someone entrusted with conveying Sophie's story to the world. He tries to understand Sophie's suffering and grows by listening and recording her story. Sophie's story is so horrifying that it carries an unbearable weight on its own. However, when Stingo listens to it and readers read it, Sophie's pain transcends personal tragedy into a suffering shared by all of humanity. This novel reminds us why we must listen to others' stories and why it is important to record and bear witness to truths that nearly get forgotten. Stories are not merely entertainment but powerful forces that help us understand the past, shape the future, and offer comfort to those in pain. We become aware of our responsibility to listen to the voices of those suffering around us and help their stories reach the world, just like Stingo. 5. The complexity and contradictions of human existence. The characters in Sophie's Choice are complex beings that cannot be explained by binary thinking of good and evil, beauty and ugliness, love and hatred. Sophie is a victim, yet a complex figure who had to make difficult choices for survival. Nathan possesses both genius and madness. Even the Nazi SS doctor who enjoyed classical music reveals the multi-layered nature of humanity. This book teaches us that nothing in the world is simply good or bad. Humans are fragile yet strong, selfish yet altruistic, beautiful yet monstrous paradoxical beings. This understanding allows us to better comprehend others, avoid hasty judgments, and embrace the complexities of life. This is also the essence of culture. Why we must read Sophie's Choice. Some may think that when hearing the words knowledge and culture, it refers to something difficult, dull, and irrelevant to them. But Sophie's Choice is a book that shatters such preconceptions. This novel is not a story that only those with sufficient knowledge or culture can approach. It is a story about universal human emotions and experiences, suffering and love, shared by all of us. The process of reading this book won't be easy. Every time you turn a page, you may feel a heavy sorrow and desolation pressing down on your chest. But it is precisely through this painful reading experience that we confront the deepest truths of life. We will empathize with Sophie's suffering and be shocked at the cruelty of human beings, yet we will also feel a deep respect for the resilience of the human spirit. Sophie's choice goes beyond being just a tragic story. It carries a message for us all to remember the pain of history, to take responsibility for our present choices, and to find the courage to move toward the future. Reading this book is more than just reading. It is an extraordinary journey that expands our hearts and deepens our understanding of the world. I sincerely encourage everyone who reads this essay to take the brave step into this grand story. I am confident that your perspective on life will become significantly richer.